Dear friends, today we are going to study or read Sonnet number 121, William Shakespeare. The title is written as two modes. First one is Sonnet number 121. This is done by Thomas Thorpe. As we first mentioned, it was he who firstly published Shakespeare's sonnet sequence with the title as Numbers. The name of the first quarto is Shakespeare's Sonnets, published in 1609 by Thomas Thorpe. So, Thomas Thorpe published the first quarto of William Shakespeare's 154 sonnets, which was published in 1609, and the name of the book was Shakespeare's Sonnets. Who gave the title as Numbers? Who gave the numbers as titles? So the first mode of title is sonnet number 121. And the another one is it is better to be while than while esteemed, and this title is done by John Benson. As we know, he published the second quarto of Shakespeare's sonnets. He replaced the number system with the descriptive mode of title. So the sonnet number 121 became It is better to be while than while esteemed. This was the most corrupted quarto or publication of William Shakespeare's 154 sonnets. So the second quarto is published by John Benson in 1640. And he changed many things what William Shakespeare has written. He changed something. So critics opined that this is the mostly corrupted quarto of William Shakespeare's sonnets. So there are two types of titles. First one is Sonnet number 121 by Thomas Thorpe, and the second one is It is better to be while than while esteemed. This is done by John Benson. And this descriptive style of title is the first line of every sonnet. Another point also is important connecting to this. What is that? It was William Jaggard who is the first printer of William Shakespeare's sonnets, that he published sonnet number 128 and 144 in 1599 in Jaggard's book The Passionate Pilgrims. In 1599, William Jaggard published his book The Passionate Pilgrims. In this book, he included William Shakespeare's two sonnets, 128 and 144. This is the firstly printed sonnets written by William Shakespeare. And another one is Edmund Maloney, who wrote the first critical edition of William Shakespeare's sonnet, Plays and Poems, which was published in 1719. So Edmund Maloney wrote the first critical edition of William Shakespeare's 154 sonnets. The name of the book is Plays and Poems, which was published in 1790. And Francis Mears mentioned firstly the sonnets of William Shakespeare in his book. Which book? Palladistemia. Francis Mears mentioned firstly the sonnets of William Shakespeare in his book Palladistemia. So the title is Sonnet number 121, or It is Better to be Vile than Vile Esteemed. Shakespeare wrote his sonnets, this one 121, as 3 quatrains and a couplet, and which is composed in iambic pentameter. Now let's read the text. Sonnet number 121, and the title is It is Better to be Vile than Vile Esteemed. It is better to be vile than vile esteemed, when not to be receives reproach of being. It is better to be vile than vile esteemed, when not to be receives reproach of being, and the just pleasure lost, which is so deemed not by our feeling, but by others' seeing. For why should others' false adulterate eyes give salutations to my sportive blood? Or all my frailties why are frailer spice, which in their wills count bad that I think good? No, and that am, and they that level at my abuses reckon up their own. I may be straight, though they themselves be bevel. By their rank thought, my deeds must not be shown, unless this general evil they maintain, all men are bad and in their badness reign. Unless this general evil they maintain, all men are bad and in their badness reign. Let's analyze. It is better to be vile than vile esteemed. It is better to be vile. It is better to be wicked, or it is better to be immoral, or simply we can say it is better to be bad than vile esteemed, than to be considered as wicked or immoral or bad. So the first line says, it is better to be actually immoral or bad than to be bad accused by others, or it is better to be immoral than accused or blamed as immoral by others. When not to be receives reproach of being. Here I would like to pause after be. So when not to be, there is a pause. So the meaning is, when one is not wicked or immoral, receives reproach of being, he or she receives or gets the accusation of being immoral or considering as immoral by others. Even one is not wicked or immoral, he or she receives the abusive words by others. Or when one is accused as immoral, even though he or she is not so. In simply we can say, when a person becomes sinner in others' view and words, even though he or she never did any sin. In simply we can say that when one gets or receives abusive words or accusation from others, even when he or she didn't do any wrong or mistakes. and the just pleasure loosed, which is so deemed. And the just pleasure loosed means when the hypocrites accuse others as bad and immoral, the victims of their gossip lose the happiness or pleasure in life. So we or the victims lose the pleasure of life or happiness when we try to live under the moral codes of the hypocrites in our society, which is so deemed not by our feeling but by others seeing. This ugly distortion is actually not by our feeling but by the views and words of the busybodies in our society. Actually, they are the hypocrites. Now let's do the summary of first quatrain. In our society or surroundings, there are some persons. They are hypocrites and busybodies. So they always evaluate others as immoral. That even though a person is good, he becomes immoral or bad in the moral codes of these hypocritical busybodies. So their gossip and degraded evaluation makes the victims restless and sad, and so lose their happiness in life forever. So the poet contemptuously mocked the hypocrites, advising the people to live for them but not as per the moral codes of the hypocritical evaluators in our society. Here through the speaker, the poet proclaims us that be ourselves and not to be and don't be the string puppets in the hand of the hypocrites in our society. The next line. For why should others' false and adulterate eyes give salutations to my sportive blood? Why should the hypocrites' false, impure eyes focus on my inner call or inner vision? Here, the speaker asks why the others' colored view listen to my sportive blood or inner vision. For what purpose they focus on my passion? Adulterate means impure or sully. Sportive blood here indicates the speaker's or Shakespeare's attraction or lustful attitude towards the fair youth, a young man. Here, the speaker argues for the poem. And the poem celebrates homosexuality. This is told by some of the critics. In simply, we can say, why should the busybodies peep into my personal zone? This is the sharp question of the speaker. Or on my frailties, why are frailer spies? Or why the frailer persons or frailer hypocrites pry into my frailties? Or why the big sinners spy or pry to my small sins? Why the more wrongdoers try to pry or criticize my least mistakes, which in their wills count bad that I think good? Here the poet asks, why the goodness in me becomes bad to others, or why do the matters which is good in my mind become bad in their thought. Why these hypocritical people do evaluate and criticize my goodness or good things as bad as per their moral codes. Adulterate eyes means sully or impure views, not the genuine views. Sporty blood means it's a metaphor for passion, or is a sense of sport. The connotation is the lustful attitude of the speaker or the poet towards the handsome youth. There is a word, frail. Frail is the V1, frailed V2, frailed V3. Then frail is adjective and positive degree also. Frailer is the comparative degree and frailest is the superlative degree. Now let's look at the summary of second quatrain. Here the speaker asks 3 sharp questions to the eyes of the hypocrites or the hypocritical busybodies in our society. The first one is, why should the hypocritical people evaluate or criticize the speaker or poet with their false, adulterate or impure views? Or for what purpose the hypocritic people criticize speakers or Shakespeare's lustful attitudes towards his friend? Or why do hypocrites hunt the homosexuality? The second question is, for what purpose or why the frailer hypocrites spy or pry my least frailties or weakness, or hiding their big frailties? The third question is, why these busybodies or hypocrites sees and shows badness in my good deeds and thoughts? So these are the 3 major questions. Through these questions, William Shakespeare sharply questions the hypocritical spokesperson of busybody society and urges the public to do what they want or to live as they like, if it will not be an antisocial aspects. So through this verse, Shakespeare questions the hypocritical persons in our society and inspire or urges the public to live what we want to live, how we want to live, and it will not be an antisocial. These 8 lines constitute octave part of the sonnet number 121. Actually, this was the system in Italian sonnet, but in this sonnet, these 8 lines do not do the octave. So the 3 quatrains do the role of octave, the part of octave. So the next line is, no, am that am, and they that level. No, the poet bursts out, rejecting the other's evaluation. Am that am. The speaker asserts or proclaims that he is what he is, or as a person he is what he is, or a person should be the person and not to change or distort for others. or not to be changed or distorted our insight or self as per the moral codes of the dictates of the hypocrites. And they that level at my abuses reckon up their own. The speaker argues or asserts that when the hypocrites level or to lay at my misbehaves or abuses, actually they do recall their own mistakes or abuses. Or when the hypocritical people try to point and exaggerate unjustly one's or speaker's mistakes or misbehaves, actually they deliberately air their own faults. Here the speaker critically questions the hypocrisy of the hypocrites in our society. I may be straight, though they themselves be bevel. I may be straight. The speaker says that he may be straight, or the poet is honest, though they themselves be bevel, though they are crooked. The speaker states that he is honest and truthful, even though the hypocrites are crooked, or through the false critics are crooked. He is honest and upright. Straight means upright, honest or truthful. Bevel means artisan, flopped and crooked. By their rank thought, my deeds must not be shown. By their rank thought, by their or in their rank or frosty thoughts, or in their crooked or sully view, my deeds must not be shown. My deeds and behaves must not be shown, or the speaker can't be expressed. By their rank thought, or through the frosty or sully views of the hypocrites, the speaker's good deeds and behaves never be expressed. They only show their painted image of a person, not the real. Here the targets gets failed. Reckon up means recall or highlight, do highlight. Straight means upright. Bevel means crook or partisan. Rank thought means offensive views or frosty opinions. The summary of the third quatrain. Here in this quatrain, the poet sharply asserts or justifies his side. He says aloud that he never be changed as per the moral codes or etiquette of hypocrites. The speaker as a person, so he himself the actual he is. When the others or busybodies try to point my speaker's abuses or misbehaves, actually their mistakes and badness get into the air. The speaker is upright even though the evaluators are crooked. So, in their crooked or sullied thoughts or views, the speaker's real deeds never be shown. Here, the poet justifies and clear his will. Unless this general evil they maintain, this means unless they cross-check this evil or general evil, unless they cross the hypocrisy or unless they admit or maintain it. Maintain means cross-check or correct. Unless means if not. All men are bad in their badness reign. Unless they admit or understand a common fact that all men are, including so-called hypocrites, are bad. All persons are bad in their evil nature or evilness. So, here the poet says, unless the hypocrites cross-check the common evilness in their mind, all persons be painted as bad according to such a painted perspective they possess. So, here the poet says, factful generalization or common judgment in this couplet, that if everybody in our society admit or understand the fact that all are bad in less or more level, will wipe out or throw it away the hypocrisy and hypocrisy in their life and or from their life or views. The summary of the couplet. Here, William Shakespeare critically picturized through the words of the speaker. What is that? Picturize the resolution, stating a common judgment that, which is the common judgment, all men are bad and in their badness reign, and will be so. If the hypocrites not too ready to cross-check or maintain their hypocrisy, that means the crooked eyes see everybody in their crooked views. So, there is a fact that if everybody tries to understand the reality that all are little bit bad, including the hypocritical busybodies, they will wipe out or root out the so-called hypocrisy in their views and words. Here we can see Voltaire or the transition of thought or turn in this couplet, that the poet concludes the sonnet with a common judgment as a resolution for the argument stated in the first three quatrains.